Welcome on back, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules Footy Podcast. This is episode 59, and it's going to be our AFLW Round 4 preview / Round 3 review episode. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, jump down in the comments, let me know what you think of the AFLW season so far. Who's going to take it all this year? I'm firmly in the court of the Crows at the moment, but we'll see what happens over the coming weeks in terms of that. Quickly, before we jump into the AFLW, obviously, big week at the moment of AFL men's season. Prelim final week coming up this week, so we'll be previewing that and reviewing the semi-final action from the weekend in episode 60, which will go live on Friday morning, Australian Eastern Standard Time, so check out that. There will also be preview episodes of both matches, like just a quick preview video that goes live on the YouTube channel over Friday, Saturday, probably Thursday, Friday actually, for the two games, and plenty of other content on the YouTube channel. So go check that all out. Stay subscribed. Don't miss a thing. Big time of the year. And obviously next week is Brownlow night. So next week on Sunday we'll be releasing a Brownlow video. And yeah, stick around, check it all out. Also plenty of social media content over on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, we got it at All Aussie Rules everywhere. Let's jump into the action from the AFLW from last weekend. It was round 3 action. There was 9 matches. We started with the Bulldogs West Coast. It was at Whitten Oval. Bulldogs started pretty well, kicked the first 2. From then on, it was kind of West Coast controlling the game. The Eagles have started the year well. 2 wins from 3 games. Obviously, these two teams were both very low on the ladder last year. Bulldogs don't look like they're going to be troubling too many teams this year, but maybe they get a chance this weekend up against Collingwood, but we'll get into that shortly. So, as I said, it was in the end, Eagles winning reasonably comfortably, 11 points, controlled the ball, controlled inside 50s throughout most of the game, plus 7 in inside 50s, plus 50 in disposals. Clearances, not pretty close really, 32 to 28. Centre clearances was really good for the Bulldogs, but the rest of the clearances, stoppage clearances, were the way of the Eagles, so they controlled that part. They controlled uncontested footy and contested football, did the Eagles. They controlled the turnover game. In all honesty, probably should have won by more than they did. Laid a massive 91 tackles as well, the Eagles, so that was a really impressive number for them, or for any team. But, yeah, good effort from them. Some of the best players will go, no multiple goal kickers, so we won't look at that too much. But some of the best players, Alison Drennan for the Eagles, 26 touches and a goal, 8 clearances, 12 tackles, huge game. Ella Roberts was outstanding as well. She's had a really good start to the year, 23 touches and a goal. For the Doggies, Isabel Pritchard had 19 touches, 10 tackles and a goal, so a good effort from her. Ellie Blackburn was in the wars all day, ended up limping off late in the game, but still had 21 touches and a goal. But in the end, yeah, game controlled by Eagles. They take the 4 points, sit in 8th position at the moment, so really, really good spot for them, whereas the Bulldogs are sitting 18th on the ladder. Both teams are playing 2 games this weekend, so it'll be interesting to see how they go this weekend with the doubleheader. Little bit of an interesting football season in the AFLW this year, but it should be interesting to see how it plays out. Game number 2 was Brisbane-Collingwood, the other 2 teams that are playing 2 games this weekend. It was up in Brisbane on Friday night, and it was a domination. Brisbane, clearly the better team here. Collingwood have had a rough start to the year, 0-3. Since the first game, they've had 2 really bad games, so things not looking too good for Collingwood this season. Brisbane just dominated. First quarter was pretty close, but late in the second quarter, Brisbane kicked away and then just kept extending it to end up winning by 52 points. A look at some of the stats. They dominated possession, plus 44 for the Lions. plus 17 inside 50, so a domination there. Clearances were only plus 3 for the Lions, so reasonably close, but uncontested footy, contested footy, turnovers all dominated by Brisbane. Obviously 10 goals 12 could have been a lot worse for Collingwood too if they had kicked a little bit straighter. Tackle count was 82 to 78, so pretty close in that regard. Some of the best players in this one, obviously going to be dominated by Brisbane. They just dominated this game. Taylor Smith and Sophie Conway for the Lions both kicked 3 goals each, so really good performance there. Jade Ellinger, 19 touches, 9 tackles, really good performance. Natalie Grider, 16 touches, 10 tackles. As I said, Sophie Conway kicked 3. She also had 16 touches and 422 metres gained, so a really good performance there. Meanwhile, for Collingwood, Brianna Davey returned to her best. Her first game in round 2 was not sensational, but it was okay. This one was even better. 22 touches, a goal, 10 tackles, 6 clearances. Clearly standout player. Meanwhile, Grace Campbell had 12 disposals, but 17 tackles for Collingwood, so was well and truly in the thick of it throughout this game. Third game of the weekend was in Sydney. It was Coffs Harbour, Sydney hosting Richmond. And Sydney, after winning the first game, have now gone and dropped the next 2, so not outstanding for them. They kicked 3-4-22 to Richmond's 10-8-68. I think Richmond are a little bit of a smoky for a top 4 spot, I think, this year. I think they're looking pretty good. They lost the first week against West Coast, but I think they outplayed West Coast most of that game, just didn't quite convert it. And in this one, they pretty much controlled it from the start. They kicked 5 goals to 0 in the first quarter, and then from that point on, it was just kind of cruise control all the way home. So I'm looking at the stats here. Richmond plus 35 disposals, plus 17 inside 50, so 40 to 23 inside 50s is bit of a domination there. Clearances were, strangely enough, level at 28 apiece. Uncontested footy, contested footy, and turnover game, all the favour of the Tigers, though. As with the other 2 games, suggests that there was a clear better team in this one. 16 marks inside the forward 50 for Richmond is a really good number as well. 10 goals, 8. Low tackling game compared to some of the matches, or most matches in the AFLW this season and every season. Just 66 for the Tigers, 54 for Sydney. Obviously Sydney losing a key player last week in Chloe Malloy is going to affect their season quite dramatically, I think. They might find it tough to play finals, I think, based on the fact that Chloe Malloy is gone for the year. I look at some of the best players, a lot of multiple goal kickers in this one. For the Tigers, Katie Brennan kicked 3, Shevlin, Hosking and Ford all kicked 2. Meanwhile, for Sydney, Montana Ham kicked 2. Some of the big ball winners and big players of this one: Laura Gardner, 29 touches, 5 clearances, 6 tackles, really good game. Poppy, and then jumping over to the Richmond team, who obviously dominated this game. Poppy Kelly, Ruckwoman, 13 disposals, 37 hitouts, really good game. As I said, Katie Brennan kicked 3 goals, 11 touches. Mackenzie, 23 touches, was really good. Monique Conti was a little bit down on her usual very high standards. Only had the 17 touches here, 4 clearances, but they got the win still, so they'll take that any day of the week. I think when your best player is not having the best day, but you still win by 46 points, you got to take that, I think. Jumping into the next games, we got Carlton Geelong. This is the first, what I would consider, upset of the weekend. It was just a domination. Carlton 4-5-29. Geelong didn't manage to kick a goal, 0-5-5 in this one. First quarter was a bit of a stalemate. It was 1 point to Carlton, 0 to Geelong. But then in the second quarter, Carlton kicked 3 goals. They then kicked 1 in the fourth, and then there was no goals again in the last quarter when it was just 1 point to 2 points. So not always the most entertaining game. A lot was happening, but not a lot on the scoreboard at times. Really high disposal game for both teams, really. Plus 30 odd for Carlton, though. Inside 50s plus 12, so they clearly dominated most areas of the game, including the territory battle. Clearances was plus 1 to Carlton, so a bit of a stalemate in the middle, but once again, contested footy and uncontested footy the way of the winning team in Carlton. However, the turnover game was even at 63. Marks pretty low, 26 to Geelong, 24 to Carlton. And tackle count was 95 for Geelong, which is really high number, 72 for Carlton. Interestingly, for Geelong, this means 3 rounds in, they're yet to get a win. Just the 1 draw, 2 losses to start their season is not the best start to the year they could have had. They go up against a team that has the exact same record this week in the Gold Coast Suns, so this will be their chance to get going. They are a team that coming into the season was expected to do pretty well, so they'll be a little bit disappointed, I think, with that. Meanwhile, Carlton, that's their second win, 2 in a row. Gets their chances up a little bit. They'll be quietly confident that they can continue that form. They've played a couple good weeks in a row. They've got Richmond this week, which will be a tough game. But could be a really big turning point for their season if they can get the win in that one. Once again, look at the best players. There was only 4 single goal kickers for Carlton, obviously no goals for Geelong. Best players, we'll start with Carlton as the winning team. Guerin kicked 1 goal from 31 touches, 8 clearances, 586 metres gained, so massive game there. Abby Mackay had 30 touches and a goal, and Mimi Hill 32 touches and a goal, so they had some big ball winners that all kicked a goal each as well, so that's a huge effort from the big ball winners of Carlton. Meanwhile, for the Cats, Nina Morrison, 24 touches, Michaela Brown, 17 with 11 tackles. I don't think there's any other big numbers that stand out too much. So that was that game. Bit of a disappointing result for Geelong and a bit of a disappointing start to their season, in all honesty. Next up, we have Port Adelaide Fremantle. Much improved Port Adelaide this year. They're showing some good signs, but they weren't quite good enough to get over the top of Fremantle, who get their second win of the season so far. Both teams going into this one at 1-1, so a good result for Fremantle, who looked in a little bit of trouble throughout most of the game, in all honesty. They conceded the first 2 goals. They got it back to level-ish going into half-time before conceding 2 quick ones at the start of the third quarter, but from that point on, managed to kick the last 3 goals of the game to win it by 8 points. So they'll be happy with their result there. Port Adelaide, not the worst performance. They've certainly shown some good signs this year so far, I think. Stats-wise, plus 30 possessions for Fremantle, plus 8 inside 50s, plus 2 clearances. Like many games in the AFLW, clearances are very even across the board for both teams. Contested possessions went the way of Freo, as did uncontested footy and the turnover game. So that blueprint of winning contested, uncontested footy and turnovers leads to another win. Tends to be the way it goes. Tackles, 86 to Port, 71 for Fremantle. Look at some of the best players in this one now. Teagle was the only multiple goal scorer. She kicked 2 for Port Adelaide. Best players were one massive fantasy scorer, 130 to Mim Strom. 18 touches, 33 hitouts, 9 tackles, 5 clearances. Pretty much just was doing it all, the ruck woman for Fremantle. 18 touches and a goal for Hayley Miller was really good. Meanwhile, no big ball winners on the ground, in all honesty. Leading touches were 18 for 3 Fremantle players. Obviously, tackle count will be huge because They were pretty big numbers, but 10 for Dana East, 9, as I said, for Mibstrom. For Port Adelaide, Window, Wendland, and Borg all had 8. That's that game, really. Nothing else too outstanding in it, just Fremantle looking like potentially a top 8 team. Port Adelaide, I think if they continue how they are currently playing, they're a chance to get into the 8. I think they're probably just out of the 8, in all honesty, for current form. Next up, we have my top pick at the moment so far in the AFLW season. It's the Adelaide Crows. They went up against Hawthorn, who had been playing pretty good form, and Adelaide won it by 26, kicking 9 goals 4 to 4 goals 8 for Hawthorn. First quarter stayed pretty close before kicking away the Crows in the second quarter and then holding off Hawthorn for the rest of it. 26 points win is solid. Adelaide sit second on the ladder, 3 wins, 0 losses. Percentage of exactly 200, so they've had a good start to their season. Hawthorn were undefeated going into this. They're now 2 wins and a loss. Percentage of 152.7 and sitting 5th on the ladder. So they're pretty happy with where they are still after that one. They've got a big game against top of the ladder St Kilda coming up this weekend. Do the Hawks. Look at the stats in this one. Adelaide 258 to Hawthorn's 235 disposals. Inside 50s plus 9 for Adelaide. Clearance game plus 4 for Adelaide. Contested footy was dead level. Uncontested footy was plus 18 for Adelaide. However, Hawthorn did win the turnover game. First team this weekend to win the turnover game and lose the match. Tackles pretty low, 69 to 51. And yeah, look at some of the best players in this one. First off, for Adelaide, Daniel Aponta kicked 5 goals. First player this year to kick 5 goals in a game, I believe. I'm pretty sure. I think there's a second one across the weekend. And Caitlin Gould kicked 2. Fantasy-wise, no surprise who will be top of this. Ebony Marinoff continued her outstanding start to the season. 33 touches, 7 tackles, 6 clearances, 378 metres, 131 fantasy points. Absolute jet. You can't stop her. Danielle Ponta, as I said, kicked 5 goals, also had 22 touches. So outstanding performance from her. And Hatchard also always in the thick of it, 22 touches here. For the Hawks, Emily Bates was leading fantasy player, probably their best player in all honesty, 28 touches and a goal with 6 clearances. Jasmine Fleming gained 517 metres gained from her 28 touches. So, they were the best 2 players for Hawthorn. But you just got to find a way to stop Ebony Marinoff because she is an absolute gun who is tearing teams apart so far this season. Next up, we had the Melbourne Demons playing against North Melbourne. North are probably one of the picks for the premiership this year. I think they are outright favourites at the moment. 2 wins, a draw to start their season. Both wins, absolute dominations. They win this one by 50 points over Melbourne, who going into the season were pretty well fancied to do pretty well this year, but they have not started too well. After getting a close win in round 1, it's all gone pear-shaped for them the next 2 weeks. Losing both games at Casey Fields against the last 2, the 2 grand final teams from last year. North kicked away in the second quarter. It was pretty close up until quarter time. In fact, it was dead level at quarter time, 13 apiece. But that second quarter, 4 goals to 0. Just ended up being a domination from North. They've certainly got their season going well so far. 2 wins, draw, they're laughing. They've got Port Adelaide this week, which Port are going pretty well, but you'd imagine they probably win this. Meanwhile, Melbourne, their season, they need to get it going in the right direction. They've got Fremantle this weekend, which certainly won't be the easiest of games, in all honesty there. So, they need to find a way to turn their season around quick, smart. Otherwise, this season could get away from them quite quickly. Massive disposal count for North, as they tend to have, 276 plus 42 on Melbourne in this one, plus 24 inside 50s, over double the amount of inside 50s of Melbourne did North Melbourne have in this one. So really good performance from the Kangaroos. Plus 6 in clearance game, plus 3 in both centre clearances and stoppages. They won contested footy, they won uncontested footy, and they won the turnover game, so no surprise that North controlled this one in every facet, just about. 88 tackles as well, plus 14, so really good performance. 22 tackles inside 50, another stat that is really good for the Kangaroos. Best players, goal kickers. Kate Sherlaw kicked 5 from 17 touches, really good game. Rindell kicked 2, O'Loughlin 2, and Brutton 2. Meanwhile, all single goal kickers for Melbourne. Best players, fantasy-wise and just generally, Ash Riddell, 32 touches, 2 goals. Really good performance. 10 tackles as well, so don't forget about that. Mia King was good, 24 touches, 12 tackles. As we said, Kate Sherlaw kicked 5 goals, had 17 touches as well, so really good performance there. In all honesty, out of the top 10 players, North had probably 8 of them. Best players for Melbourne, McNamara, 21 touches and a goal with 10 tackles. Did a good job in a losing side. Kate Hall was solid again without really damaging the scoreboard. Only didn't manage to get a score, but 14 touches, 8 tackles, as she tends to do. Tackles really well as a forward. Just a really good performance from North Melbourne to stamp their authority on the season. Next up, we have the Bombers hosting St Kilda at Windy Hill. And St Kilda get the win, 3-5-23 to 2-3-15. This was low-scoring game, pretty close most of the way. Bombers led all the way up until about the 12-minute mark of the third quarter. But then the Saints took it over and ended up winning. Puts them on top of the ladder, undefeated, 3 wins, 0 losses, percentage of 227.9, so really good start to their season. Tough game this week against Hawthorn. It will be a big one. They're still not even top 3 in the market, but they are comfortably 4th at the moment for the premiership. So people starting to come around to St Kilda this season. We'll see how they go this week against Hawthorn. Meanwhile, Essendon, they sit 12th on the ladder, 1 win, 2 losses. Really good win in round 2, but a bit of a disappointing result in this one. As we look at some of the numbers behind it, Essendon actually controlled the disposal count and the inside 50s plus 8. So a bit of a disappointing result in the end, that they couldn't convert those forward 50 entries into shots / goals. Essendon 1 clearances plus 3. Contested footy was basically level, plus 1 to St Kilda, whereas uncontested footy was controlled by Essendon. However, the turnover game was controlled by St Kilda. So a bit of a funny sort of game, really. 91 tackles to St Kilda was probably where they won it. Just that pressure that they brought in this game was really outstanding throughout the whole match. Some of the best performers in this one, only one multiple goal scorer. It was Darcy Guttridge for St Kilda, kicked 2 goals. Best players in terms of fantasy, for the Bombers, Stephanie Wales had 17 touches, 6 tackles, 35 hit-outs. Really good game. Meanwhile, for St Kilda, Serene Watson, 22 touches, 451 metres gained. Really good performance there. But in all honesty, it's only 8-point margin in the end. Bombers probably kicking themselves a bit that they only managed 2 goals in a game where they certainly controlled a lot of the football. Just not able to convert that into, as I said, scores / goals. So not their best performance. St Kilda, they go top of the ladder. I don't quite think they're quite at that level. Certainly a top 8 team, but I don't know if they're we'll see if they can hold on to top four. Well, it's only a short season. 3 wins already is a really good start, but I have definitely 3 teams above them, maybe even 4. In obviously Adelaide, North Melbourne, Brisbane, I think are all ahead of St Kilda. In all honesty, and I also think Richmond are probably better than them as well. It'll be interesting to see this weekend how they match up with Hawthorn, because they're probably another team that could be a challenge to their season, but we'll see what happens. So that's the 8th game. The final game of round 3 was GWS Gold Coast, and for the second week in a row we've had a draw, and for the second week in a row it was 5-6-36 plays 5-6-36. Crazy numbers that we have the exact same scoreline for the draw 2 weeks in a row. GWS will be kicking themselves. They led by 9 points at 3/4 time, having conceded a goal right before 3/4 time after the siren, and then after the siren of the 4th quarter they conceded another one to tie the game back up. A game of ebbs and flows and a really good game for both teams, but in the end it's a draw, which leaves GWS at 1 win, 1 loss and a draw, sitting just outside the 8 after 3 weeks, but they go up against Sydney this week and have a really good chance to improve their record to 2-1, I think. 2-1-1. Meanwhile, Gold Coast yet to get a win this year, 2 losses and a draw, and play against Geelong this week, who obviously down towards the bottom of the ladder with them, but I just think Geelong surely have to beat them in this one. But Gold Coast are probably, their record doesn't look great, 2 losses and a draw. I don't think they're playing terrible. They did pretty well in this one in the end, to end up drawing it and play a pretty good game. Looking at the stats, disposal numbers were level. Gold Coast actually won inside 50s +1, so that's a good performance in that regard. They actually won clearances +13, did the Suns, so they certainly were getting their hands on the ball plenty. They won contested footy by +20. Did lose uncontested football and turnover game. But certainly some positive signs for the Suns in this one. Didn't lead at any point of the game, which is also a miraculous thing when it's a drawn game at the end. Tackles, huge for GWS, +26 in this one. Best players, only one multiple goal scorer, which was for the Suns. Darcy Davies kicked 2 from 8 disposals. Biggest ball winners, we almost had another AFLW record after last week. Ali from getting the 43 disposals. This week, Charlie Rowbottom gets 42 and 14 clearances. Huge performance. Plus 461 metres gained and a goal assist. Absolutely carried this Gold Coast Suns midfield. One of the, if not the brightest sparks in the AFLW. I think this is 4th season now for Charlie Rowbottom, and has improved each year. Maybe the second season was a little bit of a drop off on the first, but outside of that has really improved each year. At the moment, averaging 34.3 disposals per game. Was All-Australian last year. I think very unlikely to see that her not being All-Australian this year. Certainly, potentially one of the better players in the AFLW competition. Lucy Single was good for Gold Coast as well, 20 touches. Meanwhile, for GWS, Rebecca Beeson, 23 touches, a goal, 11 tackles, really good performance there. And yeah, GWS probably kicking themselves for not getting the 4 points in this one. And in all honesty, if it wasn't for Charlie Rowbottom, they probably would have. Maybe player of the round potentially for Charlie Rowbottom. Really great game. Really, really impressive. We'll now have a look at how my tips went for the weekend, because we actually had a good week. So as we started off pretty well with the West Coast win over the Bulldogs. We said 15, it was actually 11, so not bad there. We went Brisbane by 30, they won by 52. We went Richmond by 5, they ended up winning comfortably by 46. A bit of a statement game there, I think. Carlton was the one we got wrong. They won by 24 points, surprising Geelong, at least in my eyes. Fremantle, they won by 8, so it was close with margin there. Adelaide won by 26, so it was a bit more of a margin than I expected. North won by 50, which was a lot more than we expected. St Kilda won by 8, which was a little bit closer than we thought. Meanwhile, the final game was a draw, so we count the draw as a win. We got 8 out of 9. We've certainly improved our season after the first week was atrocious. Last week was solid. This week was really, really good. We'll jump into this weekend's football. It's a crazy round. There's no doubt about that. Extra 2 games. They start on Tuesday this week. Make sure you have your tips in, your fantasy team in, all of that stuff, because games start on Tuesday night at 7:15. I like it, personally. I know that there's a lot of people against this idea of doing midweek games. Maybe crowds at the games won't be too good. I think it'll be really good for viewership, though, at home, because what else are you going to watch on a Tuesday night? Well, me, personally, nothing. So I'm typically just watching replays of games, so why not have a live footy? We lead off Tuesday night, 7:15, Collingwood, West Coast. It should be a cracker. Neither team doing great. I mean, West Coast are 2-1, to be fair. I think that is a little bit better than what they're actually capable of. I don't think West Coast will play finals, but I also don't think Collingwood will either. It's a chance for Collingwood to get their first win. But West Coast have shown some good signs. In all honesty, I think it's going to be a close game. It could go either way. If Collingwood play as bad as they have the last 2 weeks, they're going to be in trouble. If they can recapture their form of... I know they lost to Sydney in round 1, but I think that was still a decent enough performance. They need to get back to that if they want to win this one. Next up, we have Wednesday night football. Once again, starting at 7:15 up in Brisbane. It's Brisbane hosting the Bulldogs. After a really poor round 1 performance for Brisbane, they've really captured their form now. Their last 2 games have been really good. Meanwhile, Bulldogs, they're 0-3. Personally, I think they're going to struggle most of the season here. And it's very, very unlikely that they'll be able to beat Brisbane. I don't think it matters what Brisbane shows up. I think they will take care of the Bulldogs reasonably comfortably on Wednesday night. We then move to Thursday night footy. We got Richmond hosting Carlton, 4th versus 9th on the ladder. I think this is one of, if not the biggest games of the weekend. The winner of this, I think, sets themselves up for a really good tilt at finals, being that both teams are 2-1 at the moment. To go to 3-1 after 4 games would be a really good showing to play finals. You're probably going to want to win at least 6, but maybe 7 to play finals this year, depending on how it rolls out, I guess, in the end. But if you've already got 3 out of your first 4, you're certainly almost halfway to what you need to play finals. So it would be huge for the winner in that one. I am, as I've said many times, on the Richmond bandwagon at the moment. They're not my number 1 pick for the premiership, but I think they're better than what many people are thinking they are at the moment. I think the fact that what they showed last week with Monique Conti not playing her best game ever is a really good sign for them. Because if she does play her best game, they are going to destroy a team. Next up, we go to Friday night footy. It's 5:05 early start, so it's done before the AFL preliminary final, which is up in Sydney, starting at about 7:40. So this will be well and truly done by then. 2-hour game time is perfect. I love AFLW for that. How quickly the games go. Shorter quarters, I don't really want the men's to be shorter quarters, but it is really good that the games are over in no time at all. 2 hours pretty much exactly from start to finish is a really good time frame. Kangaroos v Port Adelaide. Kangaroos sitting third on the ladder, looking really good. Outside of that draw, which was a little bit of a down performance against Geelong in all honesty, but the other 2 games have been really good. They obviously really good in round 1, and another really good performance on the weekend. Port Adelaide, they're playing good football. I don't think they're quite ready for this sort of task. I think they're a team that potentially could play finals, but they'll be right at the bottom of the finals. I think I have them probably 7th to 10th at the moment, but they'll be lower than that on the ladder after this week, I would imagine, because I can't see them beating North Melbourne, but strange things happen. They've had a tough start to the year, no doubt about it. Obviously, losing to Adelaide already, and now they've got Kangaroos as well. We move on to Saturday football. We've got 3 games here, all obviously getting done before the second prelim final, which is at like 5:15 at the MCG for Geelong v Brisbane. So first up we have Gold Coast Geelong, 16th versus 15th. I think Geelong are a lot better than the 15th best team in the competition. Gold Coast, I don't know. They're getting carried by Charlie Rowbottom, as I mentioned before, and it's still not helping them much. I think Geelong win this one. However, this is a game that could go either way, in all honesty. I'll be tipping Geelong, but not with a huge amount of confidence. Next up, top of the ladder, St Kilda, hosting Hawthorn. Interesting game, because, as I said, I'm not fully convinced on St Kilda just yet. They've obviously started 3-0. They're going really well. But I don't think they are the best team. We'll see this, though, because this is a big game. Hawthorn obviously have started pretty well. They won their first 2. They lost on the weekend, but certainly weren't disgraced. This is going to be a good tester for both teams to see where they really are. The winner, as with the Richmond-Carlton game, really sets themselves up big for the rest of the season, whereas the loser still in a really strong spot, but maybe just puts them back to where maybe they fit in the ladder, I guess. Saturday final game over in Fremantle is Freo v Melbourne, 7th on the ladder versus 14th. Really underperforming so far, Melbourne. They got a close win in round 1, which was a good result for them, but their last 2 performances have not been up to the level that they would expect to be performing. They came into the season as probably one of the top 4 teams. They certainly haven't shown that so far. And this is going to be tough for them. Fremantle were playing some good football. Freo did lose at home to the Bombers in round 2, but I think Freo win this based on what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. But we'll see. Should be one of the better games of the weekend, I reckon. We move on to Sunday football. 4 games. First up, we have Adelaide Essendon. It's over in Adelaide. Adelaide second on the ladder. I think the best team in the competition at the moment. Going up against the Bombers, who sit 12th on the ladder. They had a really good win in round 2, but the other 2 games have been a bit of a struggle. They're going to find this one hard, I think, in all honesty, against the Crows. I think they're just going to be too good, Adelaide. Their midfield is just absolute domination, and I just don't think the Bombers can keep up in the midfield. Next up is one of the matches that has teams playing a second time for the weekend. It's Collingwood Bulldogs, Victoria Park, Sunday afternoon. At the moment, 17th versus 18th. Will they still be 17th and 18th by the time they play? Who knows? But it's going to be an interesting game. Short turnaround, obviously, having played Collingwood playing on the Tuesday and Bulldogs on the Wednesday. I think Collingwood have to win this one. They have a chance to win both games this weekend, and if they want to have any chance on playing finals, they do need to win both games. If they lose both, you can pretty much write their season off. Meanwhile, I've already written off the Bulldogs season. I can't see them winning this one. They might, but they just don't fill me with a great amount of confidence. I just feel like they're a little bit behind the rest of the competition this season, as they were last year. Next up, we have the Sydney Derby, Sydney v GWS. Obviously, the men's competition had this matchup 3 times this year, twice in the regular season and once in the finals, and all 3 were won by Sydney. Can the women's team get some revenge on them? I say yes, definitely can. It looks like Sydney are probably going into this as favourites, but in all honesty, I'm fully on the GWS bandwagon a bit. I know they only managed the draw last week. I think they were the better team out of the 2. Whereas Sydney, yeah, they won week 1. Their next 2 games have not been great. I don't even think their win in round 1 was that outstanding. So I'll be backing the Giants in this one. I can see them getting the win here, but we'll see. And then the final game is another game that has 2 teams that have already played this weekend. It's West Coast hosting Brisbane. 5:05 p.m. start on Sunday evening. Should be a cracker. Maybe not. Actually, I might have spoken too soon there. West Coast, depending how they go against Collingwood though, if they go into this at 3-1, both teams could be 3-1 in all honesty. Brisbane should definitely be 3-1. West Coast can be 3-1. If the Eagles were to win this, all of a sudden you've got to put them in your finals calculations, which would be crazy. If they win one of their 2, they're certainly in a solid spot, a good chance for finals. But if they drop both these games, then it could be pushing them towards a rough little run. But Brisbane should win this. They're the more experienced, more seasoned team, obviously winning the premiership last year. But you just can't underestimate the impact that Daisy Pearce has already had on this West Coast Eagles team. She's not the only reason they've improved, but she certainly has had a very good impact so far, and they have improved quite a lot. So, positive signs there. We'll jump into my tips for this round. Obviously, there's 11 games. So, a couple extras this week. I forgot to change my record up the top there, as we saw before. It is... what is my record now? 18 of 27. So, slightly better than what I had it as at the top of this screen. So, just ignore that 10 of 18 because we've had another week. First up, I've gone Collingwood by 3 points. I'm not confident in that one at all. I am a Collingwood member, but I'm not confident with what I've seen from them so far this year. Next up, Brisbane should be way too good for the Bulldogs. 40 points could be an understatement. It could be 100 points, in all honesty. They should dominate this one, the Lions. Richmond, I think, are better than Carlton. Both teams showing some solid form, but I think Richmond get the job done by 10. North Melbourne should be too strong for Port Adelaide, who are showing some good signs, but I think North Melbourne should be too good. Gold Coast, although playing okay football, I think Geelong are the better team. They're not showing it really so far, but I'm just going to back them in on the experience side, I think. Hawthorn, I think, but upset the top of the ladder Saints. I'm going to put it out there. I think this Hawthorn team is an exciting team to watch. So we'll be backing them by 10 points. Fremantle to beat Melbourne by 5 points, which will put Melbourne's season in big danger at 1-3. Adelaide should be too good for Essendon. I think Adelaide are the best team in the competition. I guess we'll find out here. If I'm completely talking crap. Collingwood against the Bulldogs. In all honesty, I'm not confident again, but Collingwood should not lose to the Bulldogs, but we'll see what happens. Sydney to be too good for... Oh, I tipped Sydney. What? After 5 minutes ago saying that GWS were my tip. Apparently I tipped Sydney. That's surprising, but maybe I'll make an executive decision and change that to GWS, because I genuinely think GWS wins that one, but we'll see what happens. And then the final game of the round, we've gone Brisbane. It should be too good for West Coast, although West Coast will put up a good fight, I think. So that's my 11 tips for round 4. It's been quite a lot to get through, but the AFLW season is really heating up. It's been exciting so far. I've enjoyed really getting into the AFLW this season a bit more than I did last year. Last year I followed it, but not like this. Let me know your thoughts down the bottom. Who is the best team in the AFLW so far this season? If you're on Spotify or YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the other one, especially if you're on Spotify, because the YouTube channel is where most of my content goes. We have videos going live pretty much most days throughout August, September, all the way through till the end of the AFL men's season. There'll be videos at least 4 or 5 times a week. Even after the season ends, there will still be plenty more content, so go check it all out. Make sure you're subscribed. Don't miss a video. Don't miss a drop. Plenty of other socials. Go check them all out. Thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you. As I've said at the start of the episode, we'll be back on Friday with the preliminary final previews / semi-final reviews from last weekend in the AFL men's competition. It'll be episode 60. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you on the next one.